الحمد لله وكفى وسلام على عباده الذين اصطفى أما بعد. Respected listeners, today we complete Surah An-Nur. As I mentioned yesterday, Surah An-Nur is a Madani surah, and in the beginning Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala speaks about some of the laws of adultery, false allegations. Allah also mentions the analysis of the sad episode of Al-Mu'minin Aisha radiyallahu ta'ala anha being falsely accused of adultery, her innocence, etc. Allah then mentions the evil of slander and false accusation, and that those who are guilty of falsely accusing chaste, unaware, innocent, believing women, they shall be cursed in both the world as well as the hereafter, and for them is an immense and great punishment. On that day, on the day of judgment, their tongues, their hands and their feet shall testify against them. And Allah will punish these people in full. And Allah will punish these people and give them their retribution fully. The sin of false allegation is a great one, and that's why Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala mentions it here in such an extreme way. These people will be cursed in the dunya and in the akhirah. They'll be punished. Their own bodily organs will testify against them. Sadly, this is one of those sins which we treat very lightly, and along with the other sins of the tongue, we very easily falsely accuse and slander other people. Slander can be about anything. Here Allah specifically speaks about slandering a woman regarding her chastity and accusing her of being unchaste. People treat this matter very lightly, even though in the book of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala it's a very grave and extreme sin. And it could happen to anybody. If Al-Mu'minin Aisha radiyallahu ta'ala anha was falsely accused, then it could happen to anyone. She was a wife of the Holy Prophet sallallahu alayhi wasallam. And before that we've learned about Sayyidina Yusuf alayhi salatu wasalam. He was falsely accused, and he languished imprisoned innocently, but people didn't know he was innocent. And it was only many, many years later, when he was released and he was elevated to a position of authority, that on the day of his release was he able to secure his innocence in the view of the people. And he was falsely accused of rape. So it could happen to anyone. If it could happen to Sayyidina Yusuf alayhi salatu wasalam and al-Mu'minin Aisha radiyallahu ta'ala anha, it could happen to absolutely anyone. May Allah protect us all. After that, Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala speaks about some of the laws of entering homes and how we are to acquire permission first. Allah then speaks about lowering the gaze and safeguarding one's chastity for both men and women. Allah mentions some of the laws of hijab for women, and then later some of the laws of nikah are mentioned. Then we come across a verse known as a verse of light. The whole surah has been named Surah An-Nur because of this particular verse. I'll just translate it, and inshallah. The true meaning only Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala knows, but the apparent meaning in itself is truly amazing. Allah Azza wa Jalla says, Allah is the light of the heavens and the earth. The example of His light is that of a niche in which there is a lamp. The lamp is in a glass. The glass is as though it is a bright burning star. It is burnt and lit from the oil of a blessed tree, olive tree, which is neither of the east nor is it of the west. Its oil can almost light, even though the spark has not touched it. Light upon light, Allah guides whom He wishes to His light, and Allah strikes parables for mankind, and Allah is all-knowing of all things. Allah then speaks about the homes of Allah, the masajid, and how these masajid have been established so that Allah's name may be taken therein. And these masajid are frequented by men. See, only those men are praised who actually possess these qualities that Allah mentions. These masajid are frequented by men who hymn His praise morning and evening, who are not distracted by trade and buying and selling from the remembrance of Allah and the establishment of zakah, and the establishment of salah and the giving of zakah. They fear a day in which the hearts and the eyes shall be flipped and reversed. These people shall receive their true reward from Allah on the day of reckoning. And in comparison, Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala describes the deeds of the disbelievers as being a mirage in a desert, that the thirsty man considers that mirage to be water, and so when he comes to it, he discovers it to be nothing. And similarly, those disbelievers, they have great hope in their deeds, and they will look forward to receiving the reward of their deeds on the day of reckoning because of their disbelief. When they will come to Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, just like the mirage, they will discover that there is nothing there. There is no water in the desert when they see a mirage. There is no deed, there is no account, there is no good when they will come to Allah. But they will find the reward of the punishment of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, and Allah is swift in His punishment. And then Allah mentions another very beautiful verse describing the deeds of the disbelievers, that their deeds are like darknesses in a stormy sea of waves. Their deeds are like darknesses in a deep sea. Waves fall upon the sea, wave upon wave, upon which there is a cloud. Darknesses one upon the other. When He removes His hand, He can barely see it. And for whomever Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala does not create light, then there is no light for him. Allah then mentions some of the signs in His creation, and also mentions about the believers that believers, whenever they are called to Allah and His Rasul sallallahu alayhi wa sallam, their only statement should be that we have heard and we have obeyed. These are the successful ones. Allah also mentions some more laws about entering homes and seeking permission, and nikah, etc. And then finally Allah mentions some of the qualities of the believers with regards to their behaviour towards Rasulullah sallallahu alaihi wasallam, specifically about the Sahaba radiyallahu anhum. They wouldn't apply afterwards, but about the Sahaba. Allah also instructs the believers towards the end of the surah that do not call out to the Holy Messenger sallallahu alaihi wasallam as you would call out to one another. And then Allah also says that those who oppose the command and instruction of the Holy Messenger sallallahu alaihi wasallam should fear for themselves that a calamity may befall them, or that a painful punishment would reach them. The meaning of do not call out to the Holy Messenger sallallahu alaihi wasallam is that do not say, "Oh Muhammad," rather, and do not call out to the Prophet sallallahu alaihi wasallam, take his name just by saying Muhammad. Rather speak to him with respect, address him with a title of respect. And this is true for everyone. There was no exception to this law. In fact, even the wives of the Holy Prophet sallallahu alaihi wasallam, they would never call him by his first name. Rather, they would always say, Ya Rasulullah, Ya Rasulullah. Or they would say, in fact, they wouldn't even call him by his kunya. His kunya, his appellation or his pseudonym was Abu al-Qasim sallallahu alayhi wasallam, because his eldest male child who passed away was Qasim. So even his wife wouldn't call him Abu al-Qasim. They wouldn't call him by his kunya, they wouldn't call him by his first name, but they would all say Ya Rasulullah. And on many occasions, even though they were wives, they would say Fadaka Abi wa Ummi Ya Rasulullah. May my parents be sacrificed for your sake, Ya Rasulullah. And then they would say whatever they needed to. Some people, they don't address the Prophet sallallahu alaihi wasallam with respect. And in their writings, as well as in their speeches, they just call him by his first name. That Muhammad sallallahu alaihi wasallam did this, and Muhammad sallallahu alaihi wasallam did that, and Muhammad sallallahu alaihi wasallam did this. And sometimes these people, when questioned, reply by saying, look, we shouldn't elevate him to a rank which is above him. We shouldn't give him a position that Allah has not given him. And he was only a human being, and we shouldn't worship him, and we shouldn't do this, and we shouldn't do that, ma'adallah. that is the command of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, that when you speak about Rasulullah sallallahu alayhi wa sallam, you do so with respect. This is it. Do not call out to the Holy Messenger sallallahu alayhi wa sallam as you would call out to one another. And it's extremely disrespectful. So just say Muhammad sallallahu alayhi wa sallam did this. Sometimes not even sallallahu alayhi wa sallam, but Muhammad did this, Muhammad did that, Muhammad did this. Ma'adallah. And if someone cannot even address Rasulullah sallallahu alayhi wa sallam with respect, and he is giving a religious speech and encouraging people to do good, what barakah and blessing is there in his speech, in his encouragement, in his exhortation? And what practice can that person expect from those people, from the congregation? And some of these people are very vociferous and say we speak about establishing Islam and applying the Qur'an and hadeeth in our lives and encouraging people to do this and do that. Yet they can't even complete the most basic requirement of showing respect to Rasulullah sallallahu alaihi wasallam. What kind of Islam are they going to establish in their own lives and in other people's lives? And what example will they set? And you see, there's no effort required for this. It's not like someone's asking them that, show us your example by remaining awake all night and praying salah or fasting every single day. It's a very small thing, but it's very symbolic. Simple. When you take the Prophet ﷺ's name, say Muhammadur Rasulullah, or say Rasulullah sallallahu alaihi wasallam, or something with respect. Astaghfirullah. Once I was listening to a speech given in Arabic by someone. Obviously, the claim was that this person is a scholar, and the name on the cassette and the name of the speaker suggested that the people who were producing this cassette and those who respected him, etc., they were hailing him as a scholar. The cassette was in Arabic, and he was proudly explaining in that same speech how, alhamdulillah, Allah has blessed the people of his particular country with tawheed, and how there is no shirk whatsoever in his country at all, and how people are extremely pious and knowledgeable, and how they all act upon the Qur'an and the Sunnah. And he went on to say that, alhamdulillah, the students in our country, he said, I bear testimony that the students in our country are more knowledgeable than the scholars of other countries. He said that. And then he went on, because he was very vociferous against shirk and bid'ah, shirk and bid'ah. Of course, everyone should be, but it's a question of what you actually see as shirk and what you actually see as bid'ah. Some people call the tasbih shirk. In any case, we should all be strong against bid'ah and shirk, but it's a very subjective question as to what constitutes shirk and what constitutes bid'ah. In any case, he was quite vociferous and forceful and angry about shirk. And later on in the same speech, he went on to speak about how his country was pure from shirk, but Muslims in virtually every other country of the world, and he mentioned a number of countries, the poor Muslims of the Asian, Indian subcontinent got the most bashing regarding that. And he was specifically speaking about the Muslims of the Asian subcontinent, and he was saying that the kind of shirk that goes on there and this, that, basically he was saying the Muslims are mushrikeen. And then he went on to say that Wallahi لو جاء محمد لجاهد خلاف هؤلاء قبل أن يجاهد النصارى واليهود. He said, I swear in the name of Allah, that if Muhammad came today, I'm only translating as he said it, he said, I swear in the name of Allah, that if Muhammad came today, he would do jihad first against these pagan Muslims before he would do jihad against the Yahud and Nasara. Now, if that's the level of knowledge of your scholars, and you say that your students are more knowledgeable than the scholars of the rest of the world, well, if that's your kind of knowledge, Mabrook to you. May you keep that knowledge for yourself. Subhanallah. Look at the things that are being said. Just look at that one sentence. Wallahi law ja'a Muhammad. He said, لَجَاهَدَ هَؤُلَاء قَبْلَ أَن يُجَاهِدَ الْيَهُودَ وَالنَّصَارَى. He said, I swear in the name of Allah, if Muhammad came today, first of all, Have you not heard the verse, لا تجعلوا دعاء الرسول بينكم كدعاء بعضكم بعضا? Do not call out to the Prophet ﷺ as you would call out to one another. No Rasulullah, no fidahu abi wa ummi, no title of respect, and not even as much as sallallahu alayhi wasallam afterwards. Just if Muhammad came today. Point number one. Secondly, اطلع al-ghayb. اطلع al-ghayb. Was he able to peep into the book of the unseen? Was he able to take a peek at the unseen? What does he know? Swearing in the name of Allah that if Rasulullah sallallahu alaihi wasallam came today, he would do this before he would do that. Ma'adallah. And then to say that jihad should be made against these Muslims first before the Yahud and Nasara, and that Rasulullah alayhi salatu would do that, and he says it with such conviction and certainty. Inna lillahi wa inna ilayhi raji'un. Anyway, what led me to mention this was this about we should address and we should take the name of Rasulullah sallallahu alaihi wasallam with love, devotion and respect. Of course, do not say anything more about him which is not permissible. Do not elevate him, and do not say anything which constitutes worship of Rasulullah sallallahu alaihi wasallam. Or we are not allowed to say anything in praise which is haram. He is, of course, Allah's messenger and Allah's servant. We accept that. But still there's a way of addressing him. There's a way of talking to him. I'll also say that once I came across a fatwa given by a scholar. The question was asked that is it permissible for a woman to call her husband by his first name? So the answer in the fatwa was that, given by the scholar, that it is permissible because of the following hadith. And then he said that in a hadith it's mentioned, in a hadith recorded by Imam Bukhari in his sahib, it's mentioned that when al-Mu'minin Aisha radiyallahu anha would be angry with the Prophet sallallahu alaihi wasallam, she would call him by his first name, Muhammad, and if she wasn't angry, then she would respect him, and so she would address him with respect. Now, when I came to the end of that fatwa, I actually spoke to the scholar who wrote it, and I told him that that is incorrect. I said that is incorrect. To my knowledge, there is no hadith, neither in Bukhari or in any other book, which says that. And the hadith in Bukhari is as follows: that al-Mu'minin Aisha radiyallahu anha, the Prophet sallallahu alaihi wasallam said to al-Mu'minin Aisha radiyallahu anha that, "Oh Aisha, I know when you are pleased with me, and I know when you are displeased with me. Not angry, but when you are displeased with me." She said, "How, Ya Rasulullah?" So the Prophet sallallahu alaihi wasallam said, "When you are pleased with me and you take an oath, you say, Wa Rabbi Muhammad sallallahu alaihi wasallam, and by the Lord of Muhammad Rasulullah sallallahu alaihi wasallam. And when you are displeased with me, you don't say Wa Rabbi Muhammad, you say Wa Rabbi Ibrahim, by the Lord of Ibrahim alayhi salatu wassalam." So al-Mu'minin Aisha radiyallahu ta'ala anha said, "La ahjuru illa ismak ya Rasulullah." That, O Prophet of Allah, when I am displeased and angry, I do not leave and abandon except your name. Meaning the most I abandon is just your name. Otherwise that love and affection and that respect is still there in the heart. The most I do is just omit your name. I don't omit anything else. So that's the hadith. Anyway, despite my pointing it out, the fatwa wasn't amended. To my knowledge anyway, it may have been amended afterwards, but it wasn't amended at the time. We then read Surah Al-Furqan, which is a Meccan surah. In the beginning, Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala answers the allegations and the taunts of the mushrikeen of Makkah against Rasulullah sallallahu alaihi wasallam. Allah Azza wa Jalla speaks about the signs in His creation. Allah generally speaks about the Prophets alayhi salatu wasalam, and then Allah Azza wa Jalla in brief mentions a few of the prophets and then mentions again some of the signs of His creation. Towards the end of Surah Al-Furqan, Allah ends the surah with a number of verses describing the last 15 verses of Surah Al-Furqan. Very beautiful. They are about before I explain them, the reason Surah Al-Furqan has been called Al-Furqan is because Allah Azza wa Jalla describes the Holy Qur'an in the very beginning of the surah as Al-Furqan, the distinguisher between truth and falsehood. So that blessed is he who revealed the distinguisher, the Furqan, to his servant, so that he may be a warner for the whole of mankind. And for that, because of that, the whole surah has been named Al-Furqan. Towards the end, in the last 14 verses, Allah Azza wa Jalla praises those servants of his who are closest to him and whom he has named the servants of Rahman. And Allah says of them that they possess certain qualities, and those who have these qualities and characteristics, they are the true servants of Rahman. And the qualities and characteristics that Allah mentions are, they walk humbly upon the earth. When the ignorant address them, they say a thing of peace. Now this could mean either that when people wish to get into an argument with them, they say, Salamu alaykum. As Allah mentions in the verse, Salamu alaykum la nabtaghi al-jahilin. Salamu alaykum. No, we don't wish to become embroiled with the ignorant. But sometimes even this can actually exacerbate a situation rather than diffuse it. Now, if someone wishes to get into an argument and someone cheekily says, Salamu alaykum, and walks on, he is cheeky. This could make things worse. So, Alu Salama, they actually say a thing of peace. They don't just say Salamun alaykum, they say a thing of peace, meaning in their humbleness and in their good character, they behave and speak in such a way that they are able to calm down the wildest of people. They are able to say such things of peace that diffuse the whole situation. And even if someone seeks to argue with them and battle with them and fight with them, because of their humbleness, they say such peaceful things that diffuse the situation instantly. This is a quality of the true servants of Rahman. They spend the night in prostration and in standing before their Lord. They forever and constantly pray that, oh Allah, turn away the fire of Jahannam and its punishment, turn away the punishment of Jahannam from us. When they spend, they do so wisely and moderately. They are neither stingy nor are they extravagant, but they adopt the middle way. They do not call out to any God besides Allah, and nor do they kill that soul which Allah has made sacred except with justice and right, and nor do they commit adultery. And whoever commits any of these sins, then he shall meet the punishment and the sin, and the punishment shall be doubled for him on the day of reckoning, and he shall remain in he shall remain in that punishment or in the fire of Jahannam for eternity in disgrace. There's a hadith in Bukhari which says that the Prophet ﷺ was once asked, Sayyidina Abdullah ibn Mas'ud radiyallahu anhu relates this hadith. He says the Prophet ﷺ was asked, Ya Rasulullah, what are the greatest sins? So the Prophet ﷺ said shirk, then murder, then committing adultery with someone else's wife, with the wife of your neighbour. So the Sayyidina Abdullah ibn Mas'ud radiyallahu anhu says, the Prophet ﷺ was asked this question, he replied by saying this, that these are the three greatest sins in order: shirk, murder, and then adultery. And then Allah Azza wa Jalla revealed a verse testifying to this. And this is a verse that the true servants of Rahman are those who do not call out to any God besides Allah, and who do not commit murder, and who do not commit adultery. Then Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, further speaking about the true servants of Rahman, says that they are those who are not a witness unto lying. That means forget lying themselves. They are so honest and truthful, so veracious, that they do not speak a lie themselves. They do not allow anybody else to speak a lie. They are not present when somebody else speaks a lie. They do not even come close to lying and to untruth. And if anyone else lies, they are not even a witness to it, nor are they present at the time of it. That is the extent of their truthfulness and their honesty. When they pass by vanity, they pass by with honour and dignity. Those who, when they are reminded of the verses of their Lord, do not fall down deaf and blind before those verses. I.e., the true believers and the true servants of Rahman are those who, when they are reminded of any verse of Allah, they are not deaf to it and blind to it, Like some people are, they just carry on doing what they want to. Mention a Qur'anic verse to them and it doesn't change them at all. Mention the hadeeth to them, it doesn't affect them whatsoever. It's like they are blind to the verses of Allah, they are deaf to the verses of Allah. Their hearts are sealed to the verses of Allah. Then those, Allah mentions another quality of the true servants of Rahman, those who forever pray that, O Allah, grant us of our wives and our children the coolness of the eyes. Make us leaders of those who have taqwa. And this is a very beautiful dua, those who wish to seek the coolness of the eyes, and they wish to see the coolness of the eyes, and they wish to see happiness because of their children and their partners. They should forever read this dua. It's a very beautiful dua which Allah has taught us in the Holy Qur'an. Imam al-Hasan al-Basri rahmatullahi alayhi was asked that, what's the meaning of the coolness of the eyes in this dua? So Imam al-Hasan al-Basri rahmatullahi alayhi said, piety. This dua means that Allah make our children and our wives pious. Because no one can see the greater coolness of the eye, no one can experience more coolness of the eyes than when that person sees piety and religion in his children and in his family. Allah then says that these are the people who shall receive the gardens of Jannah, and they shall remain forever. They shall be received honorably and with peace. We then read Surah Al-Shu'ara. In Surah Al-Shu'ara, Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala in the beginning again speaks about the mushrikeen and the Prophet ﷺ's worry and concern because they did not believe. And Allah then mentions some of his signs in his creation. Then Allah mentions the story of Sayyidina Musa alayhi salatu wasalam in great detail with his brother and their encounter with Fir'aun and their contest with the magicians and the sorcerers of Fir'aun, how they also came to believe. Then Allah mentions the story of Sayyidina Ibrahim alayhi salatu wasalam in some detail, followed by the story of Sayyidina Nuh, then the story of Sayyidina Hud, then the story of Sayyidina Salih, then the story of Sayyidina Lut, then the story of Sayyidina Shu'aib alayhi salatu wasalam, all of this in some detail. We then read Surah An-Naml. Surah Al-Shu'ara has also been, the name Shu'ara is because in one of the verses Allah mentions the name, Allah mentions the poets. Towards the end of the surah, Allah says, وَالشُّعَرَاءُ يَتَّبِعُهُمُ الْغَاوُونَ أَلَمْ تَرَ أَنَّهُم فِي كُلِّ وَادٍ يَهِيمُونَ وَأَنَّهُمْ يَقُولُونَ مَا لَا يَفْعَلُونَ. That someone asked the Prophet sallallahu alaihi wasallam, Ya Rasulullah, these poets, what's their reality? Now, it requires some understanding. See, the poets were regarded as great philosophers and men who were divinely gifted. People who were able to impromptu, spontaneously recite and compose verses that rhymed, that were very profound in meaning, that were very deep and that made a lot of sense and that spoke great truths. And people have always respected three groups of people. This shouldn't be the case. In Islam this isn't the case, but people always say that poets, philosophers and prophets, they mention these three in conjunction. That these are the wise sayings of the prophets, the poets and the philosophers. So people have always respected those men whom Allah had endowed with great minds, and they postulated brilliant theories, and they explained great truths of life, and they reduced the most complex truths to the simplest forms and presented them to the people. And the philosophers would do this. The poets were also able to do this. And people have always respected the poets and philosophers. And even today, in today's society, in Western civilization, the names of great philosophers tower over the rest, and philosophers are held in great esteem. And not only the philosophers of the Western world, but of the later centuries, post-Renaissance philosophers, and of the medieval ages, and of the industrial age, but even before the traditional ancient philosophers, such as Aristotle and Plato, etc., the Greek philosophers, and the Chinese philosophers, people love them, people respect them. And poets as well. Even in today's civilization, people respect poets. Look at Shakespeare. And they believe, in fact, people often said about Shakespeare, well, they didn't have said it then, but a lot of people do say of Shakespeare now that he partook of the divine, that his works were so great, and they speak about such great truths and such philosophies of life. And virtually every paragraph of his plays and every paragraph of his works, bears so many truths and so many realities of life. It's almost as though he got that from divine, that he partook of the divine. They couldn't believe that he was just a mortal and a normal man, and he was able to speak about so many great truths in such a poetic and dramatic way. So just as people view the poets and philosophers of today and of the past and of history as great people who almost partook of the divine, and there was a time when people viewed Aristotle and Plato as being prophets in their own right. Similarly, the Arabs, although they never had much connection with Greek philosophy, or initially during the time of the Prophet ﷺ, before, with Greek philosophy, etc., for them the greatest philosophers were the poets of Arabia. And indeed, because poetry is something very, very difficult to master, and poetry is often a gift. For a person to be able to spontaneously compose verses that rhyme, that are brief, that are comprehensive, concise but comprehensive, that are succinct, and for that person to be able to expound great truths in verses that rhyme spontaneously, that is a gift from Allah. It truly is. It truly is a gift from Allah. And that's why people respected the poets of Arabia, because Arabic is a very powerful, dynamic and eloquent language as it is. And in that eloquent language, for the great poets to be able to speak, people would memorize these poets just like people memorize verses of the Qur'an and hadeeth today. The common people of Arabia would memorize these poems and recite them to one another. They would hold great fairs and contests between different poets, and the best poems and odes were selected and hung up on the walls of the Kaaba for everybody to read, to memorize and to revere and respect. So someone asked the Prophet ﷺ about the reality of these poets, that how did they get this God-given ability, and was there anything special about them? And just like people view the poets of recent times as having partaken of the divine, they also considered the poets of Arabia as being philosophers and prophets in their own right. So Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala answered the question. What's the reality of these poets? What's the reality of Shakespeare? Allah Azza wa Jalla says, وَالشُّعَرَاءُ يَتَّبِعُهُمُ الْغَاوُونَ. The poets, the wayward people follow them. أَلَمْ تَرَ أَنَّهُمْ فِي كُلِّ وَادٍ يَهِيمُونَ. Do you not see that they wander in every valley? وَأَنَّهُمْ يَقُولُونَ مَا لَا يَفْعَلُونَ. And that they say that which they do not do. These three verses explain the reality of the poets. Far from having partaken of the divine, and far from following in the footsteps of the Prophets ﷺ, or far from being noble in character or noble in mind, they're just people who say things who don't mean what they say, don't do as they preach, don't do as they say unto others, and who wander aimlessly in every valley. And so the poet, 1 minute he's talking about his camel, the next minute he's talking about his mistress, then the third minute he's talking about wine, the fourth minute he's talking about how brave he is, and it's all just lies. He has no girlfriend, he has no mistress, he's never been into battle, he can't take more than a few sips of wine, and he's never faced danger. Yet when it comes to talking, he's explaining his great exploits of bravery, of courage, of battle, of this, of that, and all of it is just in his mind and imagination. So that's the reality of these poets. And they wander aimlessly in every valley. 1 minute they're talking about this, the next minute they're talking about that. This is the reality of the poets. I just explain this because a lot of people can't understand what these verses actually mean about the poets. Anyway, the whole surah has been called a shu'ara, even though Allah speaks about them only in 3 verses. They don't deserve any more. We then read Surah An-Naml. We only read a few verses, about 14 verses of Surah An-Naml. Inshallah, I will explain Surah An-Naml tomorrow when we complete. May Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala give us the tawfiq to understand. Sallallahu wa sallam ala abdihi wa rasulih nabiyina Muhammad wa ala alihi wa sahbihi ajma'in.
This lecture was given by Shaykh Abu Yusuf Riyadh al-Haq and has been presented to you by Al-Kawthar Productions. For further information, additional lectures and books, contact us on 0121 773 5191 or alternatively by post at Al-Kawthar Productions, P.O. Box 6008, Birmingham, B10 0UW, United Kingdom, or visit our website at www.alkawtharacademy.org. Assalamu alaikum wa rahmatullahi wa barakatuh.